I want to welcome everybody to Homespire and this great opportunity we all have to really change the world together. All right, so what I want to do is first give you a few reasons why we're doing this orientation, and then I'm going to talk about who I am a little bit, and then obviously on your own, since this is a video production and I can't obviously be there with you at this moment, I want you to spend a little time talking about why you individually are here, and so there'll be a little break for that. And then we'll get into really the vision of Homespire. Not only why Intermountain decided to make this great thing come to life with LifeSpark, but also then we'll roll into why the vision of the new model of care that we're going to, again, deliver together is so important, and why we have an opportunity to change the experience for all those seniors that we believe at this point are not getting the most valuable and important experience that has to change. So that's going to be the majority of the time today, and then we'll follow it up with a little bit more of about you and how we can have some engagement there in the room amongst yourselves. Okay. So first, why do we do something like this? The most important thing that I have to do as the CEO of Homespire is to inspire. That's why it's Homespire, is inspire. And so the deal is that this is about engaging you. We want the best out of you, right? You want the best out of me. We want the best out of each other, because that's the best way we're going to get the most out of the client experience that we're going to do together. So that's really the main reason for today. And then the other is, a lot of times maybe in your experience as a caregiver, you haven't had someone take the time to really go into, why does this company exist? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? What's the strategy? What's the vision, right? And I've experienced that because I'm a nurse, and I've seen a lot of caregivers not have the opportunity to really be engaged in the overall strategy and the overall experience, and that's not what we're doing at Homespire. We're going to engage you, right? And so that's, again, one of the main goals and conditions of satisfaction today is to engage you so you feel that you're really part of this team. Everybody says that when they come to an employer, and, oh, we're going to have a great team, we're going to work together, and it's going to be a teamwork. But, I don't know, lots of times it doesn't happen, right? And especially when it comes to the tradition of caregiving, it's been kind of compartmentalized, and it's been sort of in a transactional way, not leveraged in the most positive way. And so the opportunity for us is big. So you really feel that you're part of this company. This is not my company, this is our company. All right? So that's really the goal today. All right, so let me start out. So like I said, I mentioned it a couple times of who I am and what I am, but let me just do a little introduction. Again, I'm Joel Tyson. I'm a nurse by training, actually. I'm my BSN. And I've been in home and community-based services for about 30 years. And I hope you guys are saying, yeah, you look it. No, I'm not. But I'm older maybe than I look. And so this has been a journey for me. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. And then, again, individually, I want you to talk about your own journeys, because we all have a story, and our stories together create a compelling opportunity for us together. All right. So my story is, I went to nursing school thinking I was going to go to anesthesia school, and so I had a path, because when you're young you think you got it all figured out. And so I went to nursing school, did my 4-year degree, then I went to the Mayo Clinic and worked in Rochester, Minnesota in cardiovascular transplant intensive care, where I needed to do that as a precursor to get into the anesthesia program. As I was just about to get into the anesthesia program, I started spending time in the operating room. Okay, and if anybody thinks about what an operating room is like, if you've been in an operating room, hopefully not as a patient, but if you've been in there, it's very quiet, it's very sterile, it's very kind of calming, and for me, as you probably can tell already, that's not a good environment for me. I'm kind of a dynamic, kind of move my body, I can't be quiet very long, right? So, and when we meet, you'll probably figure that out even more. But, so I had to do sort of a re-look at what's important in my life and what's important in my career. And so, when I look back, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, And when I look back at my own history and what I cared about, I realized that working with people on their terms in the community, older people, was actually part of my calling. It was part of my gifts. I had done that as a small child. I worked with neighbors and relatives, and I never really knew that, or I didn't know why that was really a driving force. But looking back, like we do sometimes, we realize the path wasn't clear at the time, but there was a path there. And so I felt like, wow, I want to help seniors in their own home, and I want to help them on their terms and do better. And so my wife's a nurse as well. I met her in nursing school, and her family was in the home health business, and so I started working for them. And over 7 years, I learned sort of the corporate sort of business of home health. And when I say home health, I mean hospice care, which some of you may have been involved in, Medicare, home care, infusion therapy, as well as the private pay or private duty hourly type services. So I was experiencing all of that. But what I gravitated towards was the private pay side. And the reason for that is because it was less restrictive. It was less controlled by kind of rules and regulations and policies. Really, when somebody's paying privately, and many of you know this because you've worked in this industry, it's all about creating value. And if you're not good at what you do, and if you don't really create an experience for people, what do? They fire you. so that's, I like that. I like the fact that we had to be accountable, and I also like the fact that we got to develop longer term relationships with people in the private pay services. And so I spent the next many years doing that until I got to a point where it still wasn't enough for me. I felt like just providing that private services wasn't enough, and so we ended up, I ended up leaving and getting a partner, and we actually formed a company in 1997 called Advo Life, where we got venture funding to build a new model of care that was really focused on the whole person. And I did that in California, and I opened up 5 locations across the country, and it was getting to be quite successful. But because we are venture funded, and some of you might not know what that is, I didn't know what it was at the time, but it's professional investors that invest in your idea, and they kind of own you, and they own your idea. And it got to be sort of all about the money and not about really the model and making it better for people. So I decided to leave my company, which was a hard thing for me to do, to leave my company and get on another path. And so that's the impetus behind LifeSpark, which is a company that was started in 2004, was me coming back to Minnesota. My wife's from St. Paul, and our family's here, and so we want to raise our children here. And we wanted to do something special and something important, but it was going to take a long time because we didn't have the capital. So we funded the company with family and friends' money, and over the years, we had this care management, this life care whole person approach with the caregiving, with the private pay services, which we're going to be doing at Homespire. And over 10 years, we built it from 3 people to about 550 or 600 people. So as we've built that, that's given us opportunities to bring all those talents. Now we have your talents sort of in this whole tank to really drive towards something different and something better. As we've been continuing to aspire at LifeSpark, what happened and why we're talking to you and why I'm talking to you now today as the Homespire CEO is Intermountain Health was out on the search. They were looking for the best company in the nation that could provide senior services in unique, innovative ways. And so as they did their search, lucky for us, and lucky for us to have some good contacts out in the national scene, they were able to come across LifeSpark. And they looked at us, and they looked at companies on the East Coast and West Coast and everywhere in between to say who's the best. And thankfully for us, and thankfully for us together here now today, over 6 or 9 months of diligence, they chose us as the best in breed across the country, which is it's humbling, and it's an honor to be able to work with Intermountain Health on this venture. And so they brought us to town, if you will, and together now we've created Homespire. And so Homespire is 55% owned by Intermountain and 45% owned by LifeSpark, with LifeSpark handling the management of the company because it's our expertise in what we do, and they want that to be in Utah. So that's the long story of how this whole thing happened and why we have Homespire. And what's really cool about Intermountain is their value is to help people live the healthiest lives possible. And ours is to spark lives. and that's pretty consistent, right? I mean, that's the same thing to me. And they also believe in what they say, and you'll hear this, is one inner mountain. And one inner mountain means they want to build that relationship with a client over the long term. So one inner mountain is their go-to for everything, not only today, but tomorrow, next week, next month, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. And so with those visions and missions that are consistent with ours, it's just a great partnership. All right? So that's what I wanted to share with you, and why Homespire exists is because there's common vision, common commitment to innovation, there's common commitment to changing the experience, and now what I want to do is share with you a little bit about what we see for a lot of seniors and what it is together we're going to change. Okay, what the experience is. So some people use the word paradigm, but paradigm is a vision around how it is today, right? So what I've learned over time is, and many of you probably have the same thing, if I don't understand why something is, it's hard for me to get inspired about it, right? It's hard for me to get connected to it. So our goal, and it's just not mine, it's our collective wisdom on what we see with the experience and why it happens. Okay, that's what I'm going to share with you now. All right? Okay, so as we all know, many companies build companies based on, payers, or based on their provider type, and based on what's important to how to make money. And what we said is, we want to first, before we build any company like Homespire, we want to understand what is going on with the most important thing, and the reason why we all are here is, pardon my drawing there, but we want to know what's going on with these seniors, right? And let's say this is Sally, okay? Sally is my mother-in-law, who passed away after 12 years of early onset dementia, so I'm going to use Sally here as an example. So Sally is, let's say she's 79 years old, and you're not going to be able to read all my writing because I write horribly, so I apologize, but you'll get it. So she's 79, and Sally has a couple children, one in Utah, a daughter in Utah, a son in LA, a son in Chicago, and a daughter in New York. She's got a lot of grandbabies too, and those are those little dots, okay, and grandkids. So when we think about her, right, that's what we all want to do. We want to stop and think about her for a minute, what's going on. And a couple other factors that are going on with her is that she does have some chronic conditions, some chronic illnesses. So she has congestive heart failure. She has maybe some early onset, a little bit of early dementia, right? She might have some arthritis. She might have some gout, right? Something silly. So she's got these things that are going on. It doesn't define her, but there are things that are going on with her. And when we look at her overall, her health status, this line represents her health status over time. And let's say this represents 2 years, okay? We'll say Sally is living in her own home. Her husband passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, but she's up here from a health status standpoint. And up here means that she's active with her church. She's active volunteering. She's got a great group of lady friends, and she's engaged and inspired. She loves her grandbabies, and they have lots of time together. So if we look at her experience over time, if she goes on in time, maybe what happens, Easter's coming up. It's a holiday that's coming up soon, and for Sally, it's a real important time for her because Easter is when all of her family comes back home, right? And that's a real important time, right? To see the grandkids and to celebrate kind of their experiences. Well, this year, what happens is these grandkids aren't kids and babies anymore. Some of them are 23, 24, they're in college. And some of those talk to their moms and dads and say, do we really need to go back to grandma's this year? And they start kind of thinking about other ideas. And actually, they say, maybe we should go to Florida. And actually, Sally used to go to Florida a lot, and the daughters and sons think that would be a good idea, and maybe take Sally with us to Florida this year. And so that's a positive thing, and the daughter calls Mom or Sally and says, hey Mom, let's go to Florida. And she says, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So she's thinking about it, and meanwhile, what I didn't tell you is she's got, okay, let me just try to make that the best I can. It's not a sheep, it's actually a dog, okay? This is Barney. And Barney's a 12-year-old retriever, and that's the love of her life. It's her companion. It's something that is really important to her. And Barney, unfortunately, also has a set of chronic conditions like diabetes, he needs insulin shots, he's incontinent with urine, but you know, she loves him unconditionally, right? And Barney loves her. So when she thinks about going to Florida, she thinks, wow, you know, what am I going to do with Barney? Right? And she's embarrassed to leave it with a friend because it might pee on the carpet and that kind of stuff. And so she says, you know what? You guys go ahead to Florida. I'm fine. It's all good. No problem. Okay? So, all right. So that happens. But what happens with Sally is she might get a little sad. And we all get sad, right? I mean, that's not a big deal. We all get sad at times. But with her chronic conditions, her sadness leads into her appetite not being so good. And then when her appetite's not so good, she stops taking some of her medications because they really upset her stomach. You all know that with the kinds that you've probably served in the past where, you know, some of those pills are like horse pills and they're hard to take and they don't feel good on your stomach. And so, lo and behold, that happens and Sally gets up in the middle of the night for a glass of water and what happens? Right? I mean, I want to give a pause here because I think you probably know what's going to happen. You know the story like I do. Unfortunately, Sally has a crisis. She has a fall. And it might be a fracture of her hip or her wrist or her elbow, but she has a fall and she's in crisis now. So what happens? Her family has to come in from out of town. There's a big, crazy kind of experience here. She ends up in the emergency room. Then she's in the OR for surgery. Then when she gets done with her 6 days at the hospital, what happens? Again, you know this. She ends up going to probably a transitional care unit for 16 or 17 days, getting rehab on that hip, making sure she's getting better. And by the way, Sally's really motivated because she wants to get back to her dog. She wants to get back to her life. So she's doing really well. She's getting back up this curve, right, to a point. And then she might go home. And when she goes home, she might get some Medicare home care, right? Medicare services, so skilled intermittent services, where she might have an OT and a PT. And when that happens, she's doing better, better, better until she starts to plateau. And then the daughter has to go back to work because she's been on leave of absence for 3 weeks. The services go away, and Sally's with her dog at home, and things seem to be okay. Well, sort of. She's only about 75% of her baseline, so she's down a little bit in her overall health and status, right? And her health status has been kind of jarred. Now, in addition, what happens is they gave her something to use to walk with, right? You guys know what I'm doing right now. I'm using a walker, okay? And for Sally, that's important, but at the same time, for Sally, that is not dignified, right? She doesn't want to be seen with that walker. It's embarrassing because it makes her look what? It makes her look old, right? Nobody wants to look old or feel fragile. So what she does is she says, well, I want to go to church, but I don't want to be seen with that. I want to go to my ladies' I don't want to be seen with that. So she self-isolates herself a little bit, and she's not getting out like she normally would, and she's not moving air through her lungs like she normally would, and she gets a little cold. No, that's not a big deal. Again, we all get little colds, but with her, because of her fragile state, it exacerbates, so it causes problems to exacerbate her congestive heart failure diagnosis. And she starts to fill up with fluids, her lungs aren't doing well, she's in a little bit of distress. She's kind of going back down this hill, and what happens is she doesn't want to call out for help, right? Because when her family was in town, they talked about maybe putting mom in an assisted living or a nursing home, and again, those can be good places for people. I have nothing against, in fact, we service lots of clients and we actually provide assisted living in places. But for her, it's a little scary, right? Because she doesn't even know what that means. She thinks of everything as an old kind of nursing home, right? And so it's scary, so she doesn't want that. So she doesn't call out for help because she says, I don't want to have anybody put me away, right, in the home. And she's a little bit embarrassed because her daughter was off work for 3 weeks, and she doesn't want to have her daughter lose her job. So she's feeling a little guilty about that. And she ends up kind of going down, 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 all right there until a neighbor comes over for morning coffee and finds Sally face down on the carpet, and 911 is called. And the next thing Sally remembers is waking up in a hospital bed with her family over top of her crying, and she's got a tube in her throat, and she's like, what in the world happened? Right? That's horrible. Right? So think about Sally for a minute. Think about you being in that spot. How would you feel? How would you feel? Where would your head be if you were Sally? Right? And talking to a lot of Sallys in my career, her head's at, wow, maybe this is it for me. maybe this is the end, or the beginning of the end. Maybe I'll never get to go home again. You know, man, I sure have been a burden on my family, and everyone's so thoughtful, but boy, you know, this is really hard on all my family, right? So those are some of the thoughts. So imagine her confidence level. Now before, she was all confident, gung-ho, like, get out of my way. Now, if she's so gung-ho and get out of my way, now she's a little more deferent to the situation. She's a little more concerned. She's a little more unsteady, right? So her trajectory back up is something like that, right? So this whole point of telling you this is that a lot of Sallys that we serve, that you've served in your past and that I've served in my past together, have been on this, what we call the roller coaster of healthcare crisis, okay? And I don't know about you, but I hope that you feel the same way I do, that that is not acceptable. That is not acceptable. And we can't just sit back and say, oh, that's just normal aging, it's just the way it is, and too bad, so sad. So together, we need to do something about this. This is our villain. So in a story, if you guys read books, like there's a kind of a protagonist and antagonist, so there's always a villain in this story. This is our villain, collectively, is this roller coaster, because it's not a fun one. It's not a fun ride. So, what we do quickly, and I'll roll through this pretty fast, but we want to understand, so we know this is happening, and to a lot of seniors. By the way, there was a Medicare study that was done, and they looked at 12 million Medicare beneficiaries, Medicare-aged people, and they found that 1 in 5 people, 1 in 5 of Sallys are being rehospitalized within 30 days, right? In 30 days they're being rehospitalized, and 1 in 3 in 90 days. So that's unbelievable. I mean, that is 30% of the people, or over 30%, are being rehospitalized after they have one of these dips. And so it just validates this roller coaster, right? And what it ends up doing is what I'll talk about in a minute. But let me go back. So what we want to do is, I want you all to be, I'm not very wise, I'm not that smart of a guy, but I am a curious guy, right? So, and I'm a hard worker. So what I like to be, if I can't be super wise, I want to be a why guy, a W-H-Y guy, right? And what that allows me to do is continue to learn. Because when you ask the question why, you learn. When you think you know everything, you stop. And think of you being a child, like when you're a little kid, you're like, hey, why is the sun blue? Why is this? Why? What are you doing? You learn it. You get to be a teenager, and you're like, I know everything. I know everything, right? You stop learning, right? And that's why we run into troubles with a lot of our teenagers. Or I'll speak for myself. I do. So anyway, we want to be why people. And so we want to be curious and understand. So if we ask the question, why does this happen? Right? And I'm asking you. So I want to we'll take a little cut here, because I want you to take a little time and talk amongst yourselves of why you think this roller coaster happens to so many people. All right? So after that cut, now I'm going to kind of be after the cut, here's the reasons that we believe, that we've learned over 30 years of watching this roller coaster, right? Number 1, we call it oversight, okay? Oversight. What does that mean? Well, 50 or 60 years ago, who used to take care of mom or dad when they'd get a little bit older? Okay? And I know you probably can answer this. I'm sure you're probably already answering it. It's the adult child, and namely the adult daughter, okay, if there is one, right? It's adult daughters. So in the last 50 or 60 years, where are all the adult daughters, right? You're probably sitting in this orientation right now. You're probably here because you're working, and you're having kids later in life, and you're geographically spread. Your mom and dad probably don't live like in Mayberry next door anymore, right? Communities have changed. The societies have changed, right? There's goods and bads to all this. So I'm not saying it's all bad, but there is some real change here, and that is a reason for there to be not the family oversight that there used to be. Higher divorce rates, right? 1 in 2 marriages are ending in divorce. So who's going to take care of my ex's father? You know, that creates problems, right? And we forget about that. Now, so family oversight is a big deal. Another one is the physician, right? You ask an old person who's in charge of your health, and they'll say, my doctor. Well, you ask a young person, probably you guys, if I asked you who's in charge of your health, you'll say, me, right? But what's changed is when I grew up in Wisconsin, I had Doc Jensen. He delivered me. He delivered all my brothers and sisters. He was at our baseball games. He knew me. He knew our family. He knew what was going on with us. He was our family practice doctor. Now, we used to have that. It's not that it's completely gone. And if you live in rural areas or outstate areas, you know that it's there. But what we've got to is more specialty care, right? So Sally here might have 5 doctors, right? One for her hip, one for her congestive heart failure, one for her diabetes, one for her dementia and neurology, right? And so they all know part of Sally. They might know her brain, they might know her hip, they might know her heart, but what they don't know, right, which is really a travesty, they don't know the totality of Sally, right? So that's a problem because they're not really that close advocate. And then third, communities have changed, you know, obviously geographic spread, like I said, people are a little more distracted with how fast our society moves, and the kind of the, you know, the welcome wagons and the people coming and helping out like neighbors is there, but it's just not as quite as much. So that's what we wanted to just kind of overview that. The next big why, right, is money. You know, if you ever want to know what's happening in our society, if there's, you know, you just follow the money, right? You just got to follow the money. And so this is this really sad part, is that when you look at what is paid for in what most people call a healthcare system, but I call it a sick care system, okay? Because it's not about healthcare, it's about sick care. You go to the hospital when you're sick, you go to the doctor when you're sick. You don't go when you're healthy, or they don't help you with your health usually, right? So in the sick care system, what we pay for is when there's a tragedy, when there's a crisis. We pay for the ambulance ride, we pay for the OR, we pay for the ER, we pay for the nursing home stay under Medicare or Medicaid, and we pay for skilled intermittent home care, and then we stop paying, right? And that's why people are kind of rebounding back on that 1 in 3 and 1 in 5. And this is where Homespire, this is where, you know, as a caregiver, if you could stay in there as a nurse or anyone to kind of quelch that, and we'll talk about that. It could be there, but it's not. And so if we only pay for acute reactive care, we're going to get what? We're going to get more. It's rhetorical. Acute reactive care. Okay, that's what we got. So we're rewarding bad performance. Okay. It's like if your kid was stealing at the dime store, would you, like, when the child came home, would you say, "That a boy, son or daughter, do it again"? I mean, that's kind of what we're doing. Hey, let our seniors get crushed out there, and they really have problems, and we'll fix them. We'll kind of put Band-Aids and lipstick and glue on them, and then we'll like send them back out, and then just wait for them to come back again. Right? That's kind of sad. So that's kind of that money thing. The third part is fragmented. Real quick, we have fragmentation of care. So what that means, and people say that a lot in sick care, a lot of executives say, "Oh, we have a fragmented healthcare system. We have a siloed healthcare system," right? And that's true. And what that means is that when Sally came to the ER, right, she was with one set of doctors, then she got transferred to the OR doctor, then she was in the hospital with a different doctor set, probably a hospitalist for 6 days. So she had 3 different sets of services. Then when she went from the hospital to the skilled nurse facility, everything starts back over again, right? She has to develop all new rapport with new people. The payment methodology is different, so the incentives are different. The policies and procedures and practices are all different. And so Sally's kind of going through this whirlwind, not knowing what's going on. She's like, "Hey, don't you guys talk to each other? Why am I answering all these same questions again? Didn't you talk to the person that was like at the thing? I mean, what the heck? This seems really kind of crazy," right? And she's right. And then when she goes from the nursing home to home, same thing happens again. There's a transfer. Yes, there's some documents, there's some transfer papers, there's some orders, right? We get some things that we all work off of. But, you know, it's a new therapist, it's a new nurse, it's a new this, it's a new that. I mean, everything's changing, the incentives are different, and so it really creates a really poor overall system experience, right? And that's just from here to here. That's just the sick part. That's just the acute reactive part. Now over here, there's nothing. That's the void. There's no one there. So, that. And the last one is ageism, right? Because we have a lot of strong bravado sort of sentiment in America where, you know, old is bad, and, you know, if you're frail, you're bad. If you ask for help, you're bad. You know, I mean, again, I'm using generalizations in this presentation today, so please bear with that, and I'll acknowledge that. But the fact is Sally could have maybe asked for some help here, but because she didn't want to be vulnerable or basically be frail, she decided not to, right? She could have done a little more on her own too, but because there's such a push on ageism that it's not good, that she was unwilling to kind of get some support and help. That's kind of sad, and that is what ageism is. Okay, so that's the why. Now the other why, which is kind of a given, and I usually don't talk about too much because it's sort of like just obvious, is the other why is we have a whole bunch more Sallies, right? Everyone knows, you've heard like the age wave or the pig in the python or the, aging tsunami. I mean, people use different words for that. But there's a lot of people that are going into this aging spectrum. Not only are they going in from the baby boom generation, but they're living longer, right? This is a little factoid for you, a little question that I'll pause on. So what do you think the average life expectancy was 118 years ago, or at the turn of the century? What would you guess? Again, we've been on this earth for arguably a couple thousand years, and up until just 118 years ago, the answer is 49 years, right? 49 years. So we went 2,000 years to get to 49, and now in the last 118 years, guess what it is? So now today, the average life expectancy of a person is between 78 and 80 years old. So let's just call it 80. So we went that much in the last 118. And that's why people are living with all these other chronic conditions and more frailty, and there's a lot more need in the system, right? And so I just wanted to share that with you. The reason for that is, we don't have bubonic plague, we have vaccinations, we have better medicine, we have better technology. And those are all good things to some degree, but if we don't have something that's going to support people better, which we don't, then there's going to be a lot of tragedy, a lot of trauma, and that's what we're seeing. Okay, so that's the why. And then the cost, really quickly, what does this cost, this roller coaster? Right? And when you hear the word cost, what you normally think of is money, but guess what the biggest cost is? I'll pause there for a second. We have a smiley Sally here. She's doing great. She's up here. She's independent. She's volunteering. She's giving back. She's totally loves her grandkids. She's engaged in her grandkids' life. And now, 2 years later, this means she's probably in an institution. She's not happy. She's feeling like she's taking up space and air, and she's not really wanting to be on this planet any longer. Potentially. Again, traumatization. But if you end up getting hammered down into this situation, you're not really happy. You're not sparked. You're not living the Homespire way. So, that's the number one cost, is what we say is her life experience. Now, there's other people involved too, right? Because guess what about the family? We all have grandmas, aunts, uncles, people we love. And why do we usually really care about our elderly? Well, we should anyway, but there's a couple other things that kind of go in there normally, is that they love us unconditionally. They are the goodness. They tell us things that no one else will tell us, right? That's why we love older people, because they're mature. They're aware. They don't worry about their new fancy car and what they're going to do, whatever. They worry about you. They worry about your life. They worry about your person, your soul, your spirit. They're good, your heart. And so we need that. We need that. And what happens is, from a family standpoint, psychologically, when you're a daughter or son that's trying to manage this on your own, and you're trying to manage your children, you're trying to manage a job, and you're trying to pay your bills, it becomes very guilt-ridden, right? What's the right thing to do? And it seems like, as a family member, a lot of times you never do the right thing, right? And that's sad, because we put a lot of pressure, especially on our ladies and men, because there's this burden, right? That's not feeling good very often. So that's psychologically what happens, and then financially, none of these services post this that aren't paid for are cheap, right? When somebody has to have care or wants care on a private pay basis, it can be anywhere from $100 a week to $15,000 a month. If you're in an assisted living, it can be anywhere from a couple grand a month to $7 or $8 grand a month. Okay? If you're in a nursing home privately, it can be about $7 grand a month. Okay, so none of those options are free. So what happens is, a lot of times seniors will spend down their assets, and then the family has to kick in while they're trying to pay for their college education of their children, and they're trying to manage their own finances, and now they got this other thing that they're paying for mom's care or dad's care, and it's challenging, right? So that's just a couple of the costs, right? So client, family, and then the big cost is, look, I don't care what political system you belong to or what ideology you have. The issue, this is depolarizing, because here's what I want to tell you about that. We're all paying taxes, right? We're all here, we work, we pay taxes, and that money goes to the government. And that money goes into things like Medicare and Medicaid and senior care and all sorts of stuff, right? Well, let me tell you, right now, out of every dollar you spend, 17 or 18 cents of it goes towards health care. It's more than anything else that you spend money on for taxes. It's the biggest piece. Like, Military is like 3 or 4%. Education is 4 or 5%, right? The biggest pie piece is this sick care stuff, right? And so, I don't know about you, but for me, I don't like paying 18 cents on every dollar and getting really bad outcomes for people, right? When we have seniors that are not happy and we don't have them engaged and we're losing the battle here, that's not okay for me, and we're spending not millions, but billions and trillions of dollars on this situation. So we spend a lot, because just from this point to this point on this roller coaster, like when somebody goes into the ER and then they go into the OR and they have surgery, and then they have the hospital stay, and then they have the transitional care stay, and then they have this home health stay, that right there is about $30,000, okay? And what people will say, well, Medicare covers that. Who's Medicare? You are. I am. Like, I don't think that's cool, right? I mean, I think it's cool, we need to help people, but I don't think it's cool that we're not realizing the fact that it's our money. So we're spending a lot. And again, it's all in this acute reactive when we're not spending any up here or any over here to help people really stabilize and live a quality long-term life. So that's a cost. Then the final cost out of those four is the fact that, I mentioned it before, but I can't stand the fact that these beautiful people in our society, right, the ones that kind of mostly get it. Now, you can get it at any age, and sometimes you never get it. So I'm not saying all old people are clairvoyant and aware and awesome, because sometimes they're angry and they're frustrated and they don't have the quality of experience that works. But many, right, we'd like them all to, because everybody's human and we all have issues. But what happens here, if we take all this goodness, I'll call it, and we knock it down into this situation here, because we're going to have more seniors now, and if they're not happy, that just creates a lot more strain on our society, right? So it's kind of a big picture thing. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of kids, for instance, that don't have a grandma or grandpa, or don't know who they are, or maybe even a mother or father, right? They might be a single family household. And wouldn't it be great to think of as just one idea? Wouldn't it be great to have a lot of these seniors that are out there that are basically not feeling like they're engaged, to have like a non-biological grandparenting or mentoring of some kind, or helping people in the community, right? I mean, we need community back. We need to help each other. We need to have a society that really does value the wisdom and the seniors that we have, and not just discard them and institutionalize them, right? So that's kind of a final cost, which I don't know how much it costs, but it's kind of a social cost, if you will. All right? So all that said, I wanted to share this vision with you. This is the paradigm. We know what happens. It happens to a lot of seniors, and everyone that we go back and look at what happened and why they're getting service from us has been on some version of this roller coaster, and you'll learn about that when we have actually tools and analytics that you'll be involved in and helping us change the outcomes too. But so we know it happens, and it happens a lot, and now we know the why it happens, right? We know the whys, and we also know that it costs a lot, from the experience, family, our communities, ourselves, everything. It costs a lot. So now I can talk to you about Homespire, because I haven't said anything about Homespire yet, almost. And now I can tell you, what is the model? What is it that we do? What do we care about? How do we do it, right? And so you'll get more of this as you learn the company and as you have more orientation. But from my perspective, I'm going to make this pretty simple. One thing that we learn, again, because of these whys, is that the first thing we need to do is form a really good relationship, a trusting relationship with Sally, right, and her family. If we don't do that and do that thoughtfully and recreate that kind of oversight component, we can't go anywhere, right? So we use nurses for that are trained to do that kind of therapeutic communication and to be able to manage sort of the situation for a client individually. Now, so the nurse is part of that, but really it's about, Homespire is about the collective of its people, right? Because our model is people plus the model that I'm going to share with you equals sparked lives or inspired lives, right? So we have somebody that forms a close relationship, and then what we do is we follow a process. I'm going to use a little space here. You won't be able to read it, but I'm going to talk through it. So the process for us, so what is the method? The method that we use with every client that we see at Homespire, the first thing we're going to do is build a little rapport, build a little trust, and then what we're going to do, the first step in our process called the Homespire Experience, okay, Homespire Experience is the model. The first thing we're going to do is discover, okay, discover what Sally cares about. That's what's important. Not what I care about, not what you care about, not what the doctor cares about, not what somebody else cares about, but what Sally cares about, right? And how we're going to do that is using a whole person approach. Again, a whole person approach. So what that means is that we're going to look, yes, at her medical condition, her health status. That's one part of what we call the 7 elements. But then there's also what she sees as her well-being, what she defines as her wellness, right? Then we look at things like her environment, right? What is the right environment? Where does she want to be and why, right? Some people are in the wrong environment for the wrong reasons, right? Some people should be in a group facility where they can have engagement, have socialization. Some people should be at home where they have their belongings and they have their church and they have their memorabilia, right? So it doesn't matter. Like I don't care where people, but we look at an environment, right? We really want to discover what's important to Sally, right? Long term and short term. Then we look at things like a baseline for cognition, so we know where her thinking and memory is. So as time goes on, we know there's a baseline. And then some other fun ones are we look at the social supports. Okay, there's 2 assets most people have, right? 2 assets. One is financial assets, right? So they have money, right? And then the other part that somebody might have that's really valuable is their social supports, right? People that love them and care about them and are willing to do things for them. Because a lot of times people may not have a lot of money, but they have a lot of social supports, right? And then they can get the kind of services and support and help that they need in the community or wherever they are. Or they have money and they buy them, right? If you have neither, you're really in trouble, right? You want to have both, hopefully, right? You want to have some disposable income and you want to have some really good friends when you need them, right? So social supports. And then we also, yes, we look at the financial. We look where they're at. What's the longevity of their finances? What is realistic? Where should they be and how can they retain that monetary funding as long as possible, right? And then the final parts of that 7 elements are the really fun ones. And I know you guys are going to love this. And this is where I so much can't wait to have you engage in this work. But looking at people's identity and their purpose and passion, right? So why does Sally get up in the morning? What makes her tick? And you are so close to our clients. You're the ones that know this even more than the life care manager at times, right? Even though, because you're discovering with them all the time. And that's the point. You're also doing this. The life care managers, that's their role, that's their responsibility. But you are also following that discovery process ongoing because you're right in front of those clients all the time. You're seeing them. You have probably a deeper relationship with a lot of the clients that you'll serve over time. Does that make sense? Right. So, discovery, right? Once we discover, we prioritize those things based on Sally, and then we build what's called a life plan. So there is a care plan that you'll follow that has all the tasky stuff on it, and then there's a life plan that's really about the rest of the things that we talked about in the 7 elements and that are prioritized for her. You will also be working off that life plan and engaging and facilitating and delivering and fulfilling on that life plan, right? So together as a team, you and the life care manager with our clients are the core folks that interchange and interface with them and the family. So we build a life plan, and then we have another step called empowerment, and that's using best practices to make sure that we have a plan that's the best plan for the circumstance at hand. So for instance, if they have a medical condition like congestive heart failure, that's easy. That's low salt diet, weigh every day, manage your weight, manage your fluid. That's easy. But what's not easy, and what we're really doing at Homespire is we're looking at things like loneliness, right? What's the algorithm for that? What's the process? What's the standard? What's the standard and process and action plan for somebody that's disengaged with their family, right? I mean, these are things that we have to deal with because that's what we do as humans, right? We're broader than just our medical conditions. So we have to build best practices. And then we call it Ignite. And Ignite is about fulfilling those action plans, right? So it isn't enough just to have a plan, right? It's not enough just to have a plan. We have to fulfill that plan, because if you're 79 and you're living in your own place and your husband passed away a couple years ago and you're living in a community and you don't know how to find somebody that can watch a dog that has incontinence, or you don't know where to look, it's not like just pull up the yellow pages, right? So we have navigation, and together we're going to find solutions to make sure that if she wants to go to Florida, that dog is going to be taken care of. If she needs an Uber cab to the airport, we can set up Uber for her and her family. If she needs somebody to accompany her on that trip. We will accompany her on that trip. So the answer is always going to be yes, we can, right? There might be some issues, there obviously is some cost related to some of those things, but that ignite is really important. And then finally what we do, we say in God we trust, everyone else bring data. And so because we're a company that wants to be an inspirational company for not only in Minnesota and in Utah, but across the country, and reset how we deliver care, it's important for us to have results, right? So the last step in our Homespire experience is results. We want data. We want analytics. We want to be able to show people that we can break this roller coaster. We can break this roller coaster. Now from a health status, obviously when you're older, your health status is going to go down over time. We're mortal, right? There's no Pollyannish, view on that. But we can avoid these deep crises by having the best people like you guys in the room with the rest of our team, delivering on this Homespire experience. We know, we've proven it. We can prove that we can break this roller coaster and avoid these deep crises, right? Regardless of where people live. They might be in assisted living, they might be in their home, they might be in a group co-op, they might be, even in a nursing facility. So the other benefit, I've talked a lot about this as being the health status over time. By following this Homespire experience, what also happens, and the beautiful part, and why I'm so excited to talk to you, and honored to talk to you, and honored to have this opportunity actually, is that we can keep, if we change this line from home status or health status to life experience, we can help this always climb. That's our ultimate job, is to help someone's life experience get better all the time. Regardless of physical condition or diagnoses or problems, we can help this person be more alive, be more in touch with their confidence, open up hope doors, give them more chances to be successful and feel great. Wake up in the morning and want to get after it, right? Just because you're old doesn't mean you're dead. This doesn't mean you can't do things, right? And there's tons of stories that you're going to hear and tons of stories that you're going to create if you believe in this model and in this company and in yourself to do it differently, okay? So that's really the goal. And we have, again, countless experiences of when we improve the health experience. Because I don't know about you, but for me, death is part of life, right? And so when I am ready to pass into another world, right, and whatever your religious beliefs are, I want to be doing it with a smile on my face, right? I don't want to be doing it tragically and scratching my way and having everybody be so distraught about my end of life. If I am thoughtful and I do this Homespire experience and I have my goals and I understand and I make my own decisions and I'm in control of those decisions beyond even advanced directives, but really in that life plan that's kind of advanced care planning and etc. We can go out of this world with dignity, with respect, with confidence that we lived a good life and that we left a legacy, that we've made a difference, right? What else is there, right? We've made a difference. And that's what we want to have people feel doing this work. We all can do that. Everyone can do that. Doesn't matter what role you are in this company, but it's not our job. I don't want anybody that's looking to have a job in this company at Homespire. I hope it's your passion, right? And not only do you have a hope, but it needs to be your passion, because that's what makes a difference, okay? So that's really a big part of this, and that's what you're a part of. Being, caregivers in this company, you're a team. This is about, we call it in the professional, a lot of people call it interdisciplinary team, right? And so it's not just one person doing everything, right? It's us together, because no one can know Sally all the time, every part of her, right? But together we can, and if we collaborate and we work together with that ultimate high-level mission and vision about inspiration and quality of experience, then we can do some fantastic things, right? And so that's what I'm looking forward to working with you individually and collectively on, is making that experience happen. Because here's the real deal, right? In the end, it's also in what's in it for me, right? What's in it for you, right? And psychologically, that's kind of a thing that everybody, it's about the client and all that. Well, guess what? That's true, but it's also about you, right? And when you can do this kind of work, when you can inspire and really make a difference and create the value that's maybe even you're not even expecting you can do some of those things, but together we can. That makes you so much better. I mean, it brings out your best qualities, it brings out your gifts, it brings out your passion, it brings out your spirit, right? I mean, I want to be in a place where I feel like I'm making a difference too. And guess what? When I feel really good, how much more likely am I to make somebody else feel good, right? That's a basic, simple concept, but common sense isn't that common, right? Sometimes we make it so hard, we make it so difficult, but it's all about us too, right? So we need to do that together. We need to be honest, we need to be genuine, we need to hold each other, high, hold the bar high. We can't just treat this like, oh, it's just a job and I'm just going to these tasks and whatever. I mean, because I've been in companies like that. That's not this company. So if that's, what you're looking for, just to kind of get through the day and kind of do your tasks and get over and get on with it, that's, it's probably not a good place, right? And that's how you should feel with the people you work around. It's how you should hold me accountable, right? Like I should hold you accountable. That's not how we play. All right? So it's a little bit more side dialogue on things, but I think it's pretty important. So that's really what was the majority of what I wanted to share today. So coming back, I really want you all to know that personally I'm honored to be able to be in this with you. And I've said it before, but it doesn't hurt saying it a few times because I'm really excited. I hope you see the passion in my heart for you and for this company. This Homespire opportunity is really, really important for us as a collective because, again, it's not just about a few seniors or the ones we get to serve. It's trying to redefine the way that we serve people across the country, and you need to be a part of that with us. There's more to come. We have a lot more strategy, more things that we're going to put into the model to make it more robust, to include things potentially in the future like physician services, like more navigation. So when people are at different points on the roller coaster, we actually have a lot more social interaction with them and their family, and using technology with apps and different experiences where they can engage on their own, so we're not heavily dependent. I mean, I have to tell you, my personal goal for people is that they don't have to have care, right? I want people off care, right? Because what does Sally really want? She wants to be off care. That doesn't mean we want to not be away from her. We want to be connected. And I really have a vision that a lot of the work that you'll do in the future will, yes, we still have to do the blocking and tackling, the bathing and the dressing and the food and the medication prep. Those are important aspects of someone's life and activities of daily living. At the same time, I want you to think of yourself as a Homespire visionary, a Homespire inspirer, right? Not the traditional caregiver. You need to be a part of this team, helping this model come to life for Sally. And that's where it gets to be really fun for you, because I know you're going to be on doing things that you've never done before. You're going to take people on events. You're going to be able to engage them in ways that you've never been really offered to engage them before. And that's what gets me really excited and passionate. So I'm a huge believer in the opportunity for career ladders and growth for our caregivers, and opportunities to move in the company and to help lead this company, right? In fact, back at LifeSpark, about 3 of our executives actually were home health aides, and so it's pretty cool when you see someone that's over the years have grown up in this industry and are leading this company. So that should say a lot to all of you, that we value you, we value what you do. We know it can be challenging work. At the same time, it can be inspiring work. And so I ask just to give the most you can of yourself, mostly of your heart. And I look forward again to working with you closely in the future. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you today, and we're all in this together, so let's get after it. Thank you.